Welcome. If you are an ambitious speaker who wants to get booked and then booked again and again, you are at the right place at the right time. You will be meeting one of my longtime friends and colleagues from the National Speakers Association, who's well known at helping speakers launch their speaking career, and also those who are seasoned and want to make sure that they're always well positioned. In case we haven't had the pleasure of meeting, I'm Patricia Fripp, Hall of Fame keynote speaker, past president of the National Speakers Association, and executive speech coach. As part of our duo and now the trio to help you enjoy our experience, here is Paul, our moderator, who will tell you how to ask us questions and engage in a poll. Take it away, Paul.
Hello everyone. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a chat window. Within that chat window, you can ask your short, specific questions throughout the call that will be answered live. Just make sure to get the questions in sooner rather than later so we don't run out of time. When the polling question pops up at the bottom of the chat window, just select your answer, click vote, and you'll have about a minute for each one.
Now, Paul, you disappeared just for a moment when you were talking about the poll. So if you can just tell them again, they look to the right side of this screen?
Absolutely. Just below the chat window, a pop-up will come up that will have the polling question. Then you'll click your answer and then click vote, and you'll have about a minute for each polling question.
Good, and we will start with the first poll, which is, do you consider yourself a beginning, intermediate, or advanced presenter? So while you're answering that, let's introduce our guest. And in case you haven't met Lois, I call her Lois Book More Business Kramer. And listen to this line. I'm going to read it because it is so good, I want every word right. Lois Kramer works with professional speakers who want to book more business, make more money, and avoid costly mistakes. Welcome, Lois.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Patricia.
Now, this is called a positioning statement, and yours is the best in the business, which is why I wanted it exactly right. And I believe that is the first project whenever you take a new client you work on. So give us the down and dirty with how we can create a positioning statement that's nearly as good as yours.
Well, you're absolutely right. It is the first thing that I work with new clients on, regardless how long they've been speaking. I will not work with a client unless they agree to meet me at the positioning window at the beginning of our work, because you can't build a solid building on sifting sand. So we want to make sure that our positioning is strong in the marketplace. And then there comes a very simple conundrum for you. How do I communicate what I do to the world? And that's what I call a positioning statement. It's really communicating the concept and outcome of working with you. What many of us find is a lot of our colleagues, when asked, what do you do? They answer by saying their name and giving a topic, such as, my name is Lois Kramer and I speak on sales. And to me, that is a missed opportunity. If I can speak in terms of concept and outcome, I've then gone deeper, and hopefully, they're going to want to know more about how I do what I do. To me, that's the barometer, if you will, of a great positioning statement. We want someone at the end of it to answer, how do you do that?
Good. So give us a couple of examples.
Yes. I had the incredible honor to work with a gentleman who had just retired from the Army. And he was going to fly into St. Louis and do my 2-day program. And Patricia, as I always do, I said, I do homework, send me some background so I'll know you. And so I'll know you before you get down. And I said, by the way, may I ask you, what makes you a subject leader in the topic of leadership? And he said, well, I'm just retiring. I'm a 3-star general. My last duty was head of NATO.
You are very classy clients.
So I said, okay, I'll work with you. And and one of the nicest gentlemen in the world. I'll tell you, I walked away from that meeting feeling that this country is in good hands if he's a good representative of who we have out there. But we worked long and hard on positioning. He only wanted to speak on leadership. He only wanted to speak to the top 10 in business, as well as some government agencies. And so the positioning statement we came up with for the general was, I work with leaders, since he's not going to work with just everybody. We're saying, I work with leaders who want to stand up, step up, and take charge.
Mm.
And for a military guy, it fit him like a glove. And one of the things during my 2-day, we do that the first day, then he sleeps on it, I sleep on it, we come back, it's the first thing we address in the morning. I say, how do you feel about what we talked about yesterday? Do you still feel good about that? And he said, I called up a couple of my Army buddies, and they loved it and they want it.
Good.
So that's a great example of another positioning statement. But typically for the people who are listening to us today, they'll want to start out by saying, I work with organizations, that's inclusive language, meaning corporations and associations. I work with organizations that want to blank. What is the need they have? I work with organizations so they can blank in order to be able to blank, or so that they can blank an outcome. So concept and outcome. And the beauty of a great positioning statement, if you marry that, Patricia, with a target market, then you'll really know what their concerns are in the world, what their stumbles are in the world, and their challenges are. And if you can speak to those, you are going to have listening ears, and you are probably going to have a client and an opportunity.
Perfect. Now, Lois, let's just look at the demographics. We understand of the well over 800 people who signed up to listen to this conversation we're having, that not all of them will be live. Of the live audience polls, what are the percentages that they self-identified between beginning, intermediate, and advanced speakers?
Well, we have 21% beginners, 52% intermediate, and 27% advanced.
Interesting.
Okay, very good. Now, I know, and you are far too modest to say, that you are somewhat of a legend for your advice in the National Speakers Association. So can you just give us a snapshot? How did you learn what you now know?
That's a great question. I'll tell you, when I left college, I started out in business and worked for a small company called the United States Steel Corporation, which actually was pretty big back then, in the St. Louis District Sales Office in marketing and sales. And it was a great time, I have to admit, it was a great time to be a woman in corporate. Because if you had any promise at all, they invested in you. And they invested in me. And I loved my job, but I was at my desk one day, Patricia, and the phone rang, and the baby that my husband and I had been waiting years to adopt was here, and we were to pick her up at 3 o'clock.
Wow.
So I put down the phone, I left the office. My boss knew that if I ever got that call, that's exactly what would happen. And I wanted to stay home for a number of years, and I did. And a mutual friend in an office suites building had an office right next to Shep Hyken, who, as you know, many of us know, is our former national president, Speaker Hall of Famer, great guy and an incredibly talented guy. And he called me and he said, I got your name. I'm looking for somebody full-time. And I said, well, you know, I'm not your gal because I don't want to work full-time. But I'm flattered. Sounds like an interesting business. Never even heard of speaking. Good luck to you. Hung up the phone. 10 minutes later, he called back. And he said, maybe I don't need somebody full-time. Would you have lunch with me? So I said, okay, I'll have lunch with you. And I kind of thought, why am I doing this? Well, of course, I had lunch with him. He hired me. I took the job. He gave me great flexibility. And listen to this for those of you who want to hire somebody and think that you have to pay a small fortune to do it. I agreed to work from 9 to 2, only while my daughter was in school. I told him I needed a lot of flexibility. And for that, I was willing to forgo a huge salary. The flexibility was the most important thing. In fact, I told him at 3 o'clock, if the office is on fire, I won't stay and help you put it out because I've got a daughter to pick up. I wanted to make sure that it was crystal clear. And so I started working for Shep, and I have to say it was just fantastic. I knew nothing about the business, but what I did was I went by his office after we had lunch. He told me I'd written a book. I said, I'd like your book. He said, I have a video. I said, I'd like your video. I started the next Monday. I mean, my husband just couldn't believe it. I'd been threatening to work, you know. But so before I went into his office, I'd read his book twice, and I had looked at his video. I didn't want to go in there not knowing a darn thing. Remember, I knew nothing about this industry. And then what Shep did I thought was extremely smart. He said, I just want you to listen to me sell. Listen to how I get engagements. And so I did paperwork, and I listened to him, and I say I learned at the feet of the master on how to sell speaking engagements. And by the end of my time with Shep, my job was really to do everything except give the speech. That was my job parameters. And so I learned from somebody who was absolutely terrific, a generous spirit as far as sharing information. And I kept getting asked out to lunch by a lot of St. Louis speakers. How do y'all do this? How did you do this? And I started thinking, I enjoy going out to lunch, but I wonder if there could be a business in this for me. So in 1998, I gave myself a year to earn money. If I wasn't earning money by the end of the year, I said, I'll go work for somebody else. I've done it all my life, and I do it well. But I was fortunate. I kind of hit right on because people in St. Louis knew me. They hired me right away. I got a couple of incredible opportunities from National to speak at the
National Speakers Association.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's really it. It just and then it's a matter of leveraging relationships, just as it is now for all of us in this business.
Good. I'd like to pick up one comment.
Yes.
And Shep, of course, is a good pal and in my mastermind group, Speakers Roundtable. But what he said was, listen to how I sell myself. So does that mean, Lois, if a speaker really can't sell themselves, they can't hire someone to do it for them?
That's absolutely correct. You know, I'm flying off in a few days to work with a speaker who has 4 people in his office. 2 of them do some selling. And he said, they're going to do the selling. I don't need to be there while you're talking to them about selling because I'm not good at selling. And I said, whoa, whoa. I insist that you be there because you should be the best person at selling yourself, whether or not you choose to do it. Because these people are not attached at your hip. They can come and go. They might get a better job offer.
Yeah.
And unless they're family, they're probably not going to stay with you. You have to know how to sell yourself. Plus, remember this. Speakers, lots of times after you've given the speech, a lot of people come up to you who may have the power to make a decision to bring you into their group. And if you suck at selling yourself, opportunity lost.
Perfect.
So regardless of who you have selling yourself or how many you have, you still have to be the best at it.
Perfect. Now, Paul, let's look at just if there are any questions coming in, and feel free to write a short, specific question for Lois. And also, if you want to give us your positioning statement, we're very happy to do a couple of in-the-spot critiques. So we'll leave that up to you. At this point, Paul, are there any questions yet?
Yes, we do have a few questions around positioning statements.
Okay.
The first question is, do you have to legally protect your positioning statement?
I'm not sure that I understand. If you're talking about trademarking, if that's not something that you need to do, I'll tell you that the best protection to use for a positioning statement is to just have it all over all of your intellectual property. For example, you may notice my business is named Book More Business, which I do have trademarked. I use Book More Business in my positioning statement just because it is an action statement. I mean, there was some purpose to this. But even if there wasn't, just by virtue of the fact of writing this down, for example, your positioning statement should be your voicemail message. Patricia, I'm so sorry I missed you. This is Lois. I work with professional speakers just like you who want to book more business, make more money, and avoid costly mistakes. I would love to talk to you and love to even send you something if you'd be interested. At the bottom of every email you get from me, it says, working with speakers who want to book more business, make more money, yada, 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 yada.
Perfect.
And so just the repetition of it really does become yours. I do not believe you can copyright it, but I'm not a lawyer.
Okay.
But I really think that I would concentrate on getting a great positioning statement and worrying less about bumping up in the marketplace against someone who is saying the same thing.
Perfect. Paul, are there more?
Yes. What do you, excuse me, what do you do when you have multiple target markets?
Well, typically, if I have a speaker who has multiple target markets, I slap them a few times, and then I ask them, how are they doing? Because typically, if you have several target markets, you can be, it can just be an absolute rat race. I suggest this, that you have no more than 2 targeted industries. And let me explain this. The language that I use is target industry and then markets within that industry. So for example, if financial services would be a target industry for you, markets within that target would be banks, payroll companies, credit unions, the people who write the payroll people, the people who make the checks, people who make the bank furniture, mortgage houses, lending companies. So you can have several markets within an industry. But if you have too many industries, your problem becomes this. Competition is keen right now in our business. And you get hired because of your expertise. Does your expertise stand above the others? And I think it's going to be hard for someone to have a perception that you are good in financial services, agriculture, manufacturing, retail sales, medical equipment. You have to, let me just say this, less is more, and you will find you create a momentum to your business with less, and you will be paid more for your expertise taken deep into fewer markets within the same industry.
Great advice. And Lois, I can see the questions are coming in. I might not get to any more of yours, but Paul, what's the next one?
All right, the next one is, you are very active on social media. What are your best tips for making the most of your time on there?
Well, that actually leads to one of the questions, because I've read in your blog, which if you're interested in reading more from Lois, if you look at the bookmorebusiness.com/blog, you'll find it, that you love LinkedIn and Twitter.
Right.
So I know you like LinkedIn. So, Paul, we have a polling question about LinkedIn. If you use it, if you use it well, or if you don't, you might want to bring up as well. So, pick up from our viewers' question on social media, knowing that LinkedIn is going to have a star part. All right, Ms. Lois.
Are you asking me a question now?
Yes, yes.
Okay, you wanted me to address that.
What are your
I
tips
want
on
you
making the most of your time on social media?
Okay. Social media is such a dynamic, living, breathing thing, everybody. And when social media first came out, and I was in my business when it first came out, I kept thinking, is this really going to be worth our time, or is this just another social activity that can take us down a winding trail of unproductivity? And I'll tell you, I got on Twitter one night. I had registered, but I had not really tweeted yet. And I was watching TV one night, and I looked at conversations, and they all had a hashtag, the number sign, and the hashtag said speak chat. So I just lurked, which is the Twitter language for just watching, you're not going to participate. And it was people asking all kinds of questions about the speaking business. So the next week I went back, and at the same time, there they were. And they were asking questions on how to get bookings. Well, I jumped in. And I answered a few questions, and people started asking me questions, and I answered a few questions. By the end of that speaker chat, everybody there were now followers of mine. So I have built a following. And also an interesting thing happened. The day after that, a gentleman was on the phone, and he said, I was on the speak chat where you were answering some questions. And I thought that you had seemed to have your fingers on the pulse of what's going on in the speaking business. And we started talking, and within 3 weeks, he was in here doing my 2-day, several $1,000 consulting program from Twitter.
Because, I tweet, I do it all, I have a director of social media, we're very visible. And I go up and down with enthusiasm as far as how much it really pays off. But you've given a specific example that it can. We have to be careful, Lois, that it doesn't take 8 hours a day of our life.
Absolutely right. And I think really by jumping in and using the different platforms, Patricia, is the way to see which ones are going to be worth your time.
Yes.
And not suck you into the vortex of losing everything. Twitter, I put out a little bit of time, and I take part in some of the chats, because I do think that that is where you can pick up followers. I think the brightest and best, if you will, platform for professional speakers is LinkedIn, without a doubt.
Good, and we've got an answer to our poll. So then, Paul, so give us the results of our poll.
All right, and so do you use LinkedIn as part of your marketing? 24% said yes, I do it well. 45% say yes, but I don't see results. And 31% say no, I don't know how.
Good. And just for everyone to know, we have a couple of programs coming up. Kurt Shaver will be interviewed in a couple of weeks, and he is an expert on LinkedIn. Also, Melanie DePoli, who is my director of social media, will be delivering a program. So if you signed up for this, you'll get invites to those. But Lois, specifically, you help speakers with it. So how do you address the people who they do it but they don't see results?
The first thing I would say is any social media that you're working with requires patience. It also requires some insightful, targeted intellectual property. You have to be putting out there material that will be germane to the people who are reading it, which is another reason why I preach target marketing. Now, in LinkedIn, there are a number of ways to engage. You can create a profile. By the way, it probably won't surprise you and your listeners that my profile on every platform in social media says this: working with speakers who want to book more business, make more money, and avoid costly mistakes. And so there's a continuity there. And let me share that something that I know in selling, that a continuity gives people confidence that you really can do what you say you can do. So having a great positioning statement, I think, puts you up, tease you up rather strongly when people are looking at you. Then on a LinkedIn profile, what do you have that would interest anyone to want to come back? And so that's where all social media should be the depository of your intellectual property, all packaged up nicely in a blog post. Everybody, whether you are beginning, medium, or have been doing this for 30 years, you should have a blog. A blog, 300 to 500 words. You can just do it twice a week. That's not many words, by the way. And put it up there. That is what people will want to read. And besides just putting it on your profile, there is also a feature within LinkedIn called groups. And they have groups that are associated with everything and anything you can imagine. You can go to the upper left-hand corner on your LinkedIn page, and it will say Groups Directory. Click on it, and you will be amazed. In fact, one of the groups you'll find is Book More Business, the Book More Business group, which it happens to be mine. But you'll find lots of groups for speakers, but also, if I'm a speaker, I don't want to just look to be in groups for speakers. Where do my clients reside? So if I'm financial services, just as an example again, I want to look for groups that have something to do with financial services, maybe financial service associations, some of the big banks, some of the big players in pharmaceutical like Pfizer, some of the big suppliers in the hospital industry like Baxter Healthcare and Borg Warner. Get in there, because all of the people who populate there have a specific job within financial services. But I have always preached, Patricia, that key to being able to speak anywhere is to know where to find the decision maker.
Yes.
And here is how to find the decision maker on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has made this much easier for all of us.
Good. And Lois, I think we're all going to go join your group, Book More Business, and I would invite everyone to join my group, FripVT. You do not have to be a Fripp Virtual Training client and to belong to the group, and we have very active chats. And the idea is you certainly do want to be engaged in the groups that you belong to and make some comments on other people's posts. And just as Lois is saying, and what we are doing now, if you give your content and advice people are much more likely, if they like it, to come back and say, how can we work with you? So
Yes.
Paul, let's go back and see give us some more of the questions that we have for Lois. And I believe we've had a couple of people send in positioning statements.
Yes, there are about 10 to 15 positioning statements.
Okay.
And then there were, so let's go to those. The first one is from Bill. I work with organizations and individuals to affect change and achieve next level performance to improve passion, productivity, and performance with people and bottom line results.
Okay, now before you, the expert, answer that, I would think, Lois, that that's too long. Is that right?
That was my first comment.
Okay. I just want to see if I'm picking this up. Good.
In the beginning, first of all, I really appreciated that Bill listened and said, I work with, instead of I help or I teach. Typically, when I visit chapters, Fripp, and I ask for volunteers, they'll stand up and they'll say, I help organizations. And I always say, volunteers help. People who want to be paid work.
Very good.
So, Bill, you said I work with organizations and individuals. You don't need to say that. Organizations are made up of individuals. Now, if you had some kind of a psychological practice where you worked with some groups and individuals, you might break it out. But it's too long. So start out by saying, I work with organizations that want to, and then your the key word for me was change. And think something along this lines. And Bill, I'll tell you, I want you to email me, lois@bookmorebusiness.com. I want you to work on this for the rest of the day, and I want to get it from you after you've put some thought into it, okay? I would say something like, I work with organizations that want to learn how change can be a driver to more success. Something like that. Now, you see how short that is? I work with organizations that want to learn or want to understand how change can be a driver to success, period. You cannot give them every bit of information. That is not what a positioning statement is about. I say, think of it like if you were a fisherman and you threw a lure into the water. That's what a positioning statement is. Because sometimes I might say, I work with speakers who want to book more business and make more money, and they might go, well, how nice that is for you. And that means they have absolutely no interest whatsoever. So if I'm in a networking situation, it means I need to move on.
All right, good. Let's go to the next one,
yeah.
Lois, and we better be as short and tight as we can so we can do as many as possible.
Will do.
And so around these, you started talking about how to find decision makers on LinkedIn. So if we can come back to that at some point, a few people had asked to continue that thought.
I can. You want me to do it right now, real quick?
Yes.
Real quick, on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has a great search box, but LinkedIn has done something interesting. They have created a compelling reason for us to go up to the paid level within LinkedIn. There's a free level. There are 2 paid levels above that. Go to the first paid level. And I'm not just doing this to have you spend money, but when you do that, you access more dynamic features in search. So if I tell you your decision maker in financial services is the VP of sales, you can actually put in the search engine in LinkedIn, VP Sales Financial Services. And up pops a bunch of people smiling at you. And then use the in-mail, which is LinkedIn's email function. Use an in-mail, and I would send something that says, I just came across your file. I happen to work with financial service firms who want to yada, yada, yada. And I would love to send you something if it would be welcome. And see if I could ever, if I could talk to you about what I do. Not heavy-handed. And the other part about LinkedIn that I like, remember, your in-mails do not get put in any junk file. They have to be read or physically omitted. So that's why I like LinkedIn. I think it gives us a chance to get direct to a person, gives us a name, and gives us a great way to warm up, to ask permission for a phone call, to warm up a phone call.
And what I like, Lois, is that you said you ask permission and interest to send more information. I know
always do.
Talking about getting booked. Over the years, so many speakers think the approach is, when we used to actually mail something, oh, let me send my press packet and DVD, people will be blown away and hired me. As Dan Maddox, who is one of my best clients, the executive director of the American Payroll Association, has always said when he speaks at NSA and at chapters, is unsolicited DVDs, you are not going to get the cellophane cracked. No. It's ask permission first. So that's a very simple and important point. Paul, more questions?
Yes, we have another positioning statement from Yvonne. I work with women who want to move from broken to beautiful.
Now I'm going to say something that you might not like, but I'm not here for popularity, okay? I think I work with women is okay, but what was the last part again, Paul? Beauty and light?
You want to move from broken to beautiful.
You know, that doesn't mean much to me, Yvonne. Here's the problem. That kind of a positioning statement, I think, resonates with a social service type group, a group that, a non-businessy group, if you will. And lots of times these social type questions, sociological is what I mean to say, type questions, you find that it's hard to get work in them because they have lots of volunteers, sociologists, hospitals, firms who will have somebody speak for free to these groups. Churches have ministers who will come in and speak for free. Hospitals have community meetings for these kinds of things. So number one, that's a challenge, but number two, the challenge is it's too vague. It's way too vague. Typically, my clients who work with me want to speak in the corporate and the association world. My concern with those who want to speak in the women's world is that they don't pay well, if they pay at all. And so this is the kind of thing I say, if you want to work in the women's area, work in corporate and association to support your women's area habit, if you will.
All right.
Because I just don't think you can sell a lot of books, but you're not going to make a lot of money just with women.
All right. Paul, next one.
I work with organizations that want to get their employees well so they can save on healthcare costs.
I think that that's good. I would say, though, not to want to make their employees well. I would say something like, I work with organizations who want to ensure the well-being, of their employees, so they have fewer absentees, fewer sick days, and pay less in insurance. Something like that. I like the power of threes. It's an old marketing saw for any of you in business school. But take it out to, I work with organizations who want to ensure you can even say, who ensure their employees show up every day, healthy, willing, and ready to work. Or who want companies to ensure their employees are ready to work by blah, 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 blah. You get it. But that's the way I'd put it. But I think you're good. You're on a good start.
Good. And Lois, what you do with positioning statements, of course, is very much what I do with presentations.
Yes.
And that is, you put the words under the magnifying glass.
And you do that with stories so incredibly well, because you've done that with some of my stories.
Well, yeah, so, but it's just, and if you don't write it down, whether it's your opening line or whether it's your positioning statement, it's very difficult to look at it. So that's wonderful. Paul, keep going.
All right. I have to go back and find. I apologize. Here we go. I work with business executives who must acquire more profitable customers fast.
Okay, can you read that again?
Sure. I work with business executives who must acquire more profitable customers fast.
Okay. I hate it.
Oh,
I think that I would say something like, I work with executives, if that's who you're going to work with, say it. I work with, or actually, I think I'd put the term leaders in there. I work with leaders who want to fast track I work with leaders who want to develop the best way to bring in the people that they need. Something like that. I'm kind of having a kind of a hiccup on this. You know what? You could also just speak to overall results. You could say, I work with leaders who want to learn how to achieve the best results by making sure they have the best people in the seats to do it.
Now, what you're listening into, of course, is people with expertise, and you are looking at the creative process. Sometimes you look at a line and you just know that's do it this way. Other times it takes more of the process. So this is why, and you notice what Lois did that was so smart. She was quiet and you could see her thinking. Because so often when we are in a session with a client or we're delivering Q&A, somebody asks a question that requires thought. And that's when most speakers put the no, be quiet. Because what seems like a few seconds gives you time to think. It also gives the audience time to think about the answer themselves. So that was very wise. Now we might have to have you back again, Lois, because
happy to do it.
I'll let you throw out a few more questions.
Okay.
All right. I work with organizations that want to enhance their hiring and onboarding processes in order to reduce turnover and improve customer service.
Well, I think one of the problems with this is you're asking too many things. You're trying to put too many things into one positioning statement. That's what I would tell you. I think that you have to decide I think you asked me 3 things, and I think you need to think about what 3 things do I need and what's the order of those 3 things, and possibly dropping out the third to be one of the explainer sentences that comes up after I give my positioning statement. Remember, a positioning statement does not define what you do. It merely gives someone the concept of what you do. The way you know how they do exactly what they do is by asking questions. The conversation after the positioning statement is where you will find whether your minds are meeting and whether you're a good fit. Could you read that one more time to me, please?
I work with organizations that want to enhance their hiring and onboarding processes in order to reduce turnover and improve customer service.
Yeah, there are too many things in there. I mean, you're talking about how do I bring people in? And is that a new testing procedure? When I bring them in, how do I introduce them to the business? Then when I introduce them to the business, how do I get them from being too much absenteeism? And then after that, how do I teach them customer service? It's way too much.
Now, Lois, really, are they trying to say that what the clients want is superb customer service delivered by a dedicated team?
It could be, but that isn't what that said to me.
Yeah.
But that may be it. You're right.
I noticed that Dale wanted to know, is a positioning statement, is that what you would call the same as people talk about an elevator speech?
No, and I am really glad you asked that. And this is how I define the difference. An elevator speech to me is much longer, where people go into more detail about what they do. They would say, I work with speakers who want to book more business and make more money, and the way I do it is blah, 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 blah. And I think, plus, the elevator speech, who wants to talk in an elevator? I have never spoken to anybody in an elevator. It's freaky, I think. But elevator speech to me says too long. This is my sense. As a professional communicator, which is what you are if you're in this business, as a professional communicator, you ought to be able to describe the concept and outcome of what you do in 6 seconds or less. Because really all we're looking for is for somebody to ask, how do you do that?
Yes.
Then we're going to go into, well, through my speaking, consulting, writing, virtual products, I work with employees to yada, 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 or I've got a four-piece plan to la, 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 la. My whole sense is we give too much information up front. Do not do that. Give the concept and outcome and wait for interest. And if there is no interest, move on. But an elevator speech is just something that I think is too long. I have read a lot about this, and I have a friend who actually wrote a book on this. And, you know, our difference on this is I said, I just think it's too long to make people listen. I think you assume too much interest by having it be long. And as a professional communicator, I think you ought to be able to do it in a clear, concise way.
All right, good. One funny comment from one of our friends, Mark, who just moved to Las Vegas. Nothing has ever been sold in an elevator except in Las Vegas.
Yes, and I know that, Mark, and I just read that.
Exactly.
I agree with him.
Now, there are a couple of people asking, so this, of course, is our gift for everyone, but a couple of people are asking, Lois, when do people know if they should hire you, and how do you work with people?
Well, thank you. I'm very flattered to those of you who were interested. I have a different business. I work one-on-one. I don't do a lot of boot camps and seminars all over the country. I work one-on-one. And you're ready to work for me if you have your speech. I don't write speeches. I don't help teach you how to present like Patricia does. I'm not someone who can take your stories and make them more powerful like she does. You already have to have your speech. When you have your speech, I'll help you monetize it in every way. And I'm not just talking about getting speeches, because you can't just make a living by speaking anymore. You have to look at other ways to repurpose your material. Speaking is now an intellectual property business. Yeah. Because there's so much more than just speaking. That's just one of the delivery vehicles that we use. But just give me a call. I have packages, 2-day packages that are kind of my bread and butter. And I also work hourly, with a 2-hour minimum to begin a relationship, and I have some products if any of those make sense. But I'm always happy to talk to anybody, and if I'm not a fit, I will try and help you to find someone who is a better fit.
Okay, and Lois, of course, how we promoted this event was, how do you get booked and how do you get invited back again? And I know frequently when I get asked about building a speaking career, the advice I give them is, one, you have to have a damn good speech. As Lois said, and for those of us who have been in the speaking, consulting, seminar, coaching business, which really is becoming all one, it's a lot more competitive, and that competition is great. So you need to have a good service, be it a speech, seminar, whatever it is you're selling. 2, you need to be able to market yourself as well as you speak or consult. And then 3, you need to understand the speaking industry. The amount of calls we get, and I know you get them, Lois, is, I want to get on the speaking circuit. Well,
Right.
there is no real circuit. There are different markets, there are different industries, and what is different about now, I went full-time in 1984. Lois, I know you got it, as you were telling us, in the business long before LinkedIn, websites, even email. And so now it is easier to promote because of LinkedIn,
Really?
Twitter, social media, YouTube, blogging. However, where are you focusing your time and your money? And 1, you can shortchange the process by 1, going to the National Speakers Association, and 2, certainly if you shorten your learning curve by investing in someone who is an expert, who's already done or mastered, or is a consultant for people who want to do what you do. Now, at this point, so 1, if you're interested in having a conversation with Lois, please send her an email, give her a call. You've got it, bookmorebusiness.com. Couldn't be clearer about that. And Lois, we have plenty of questions. And Paul, if we can give all these questions to Lois?
Absolutely.
So perhaps, Lois, within your blog, you want to, over the next few weeks, take some of these questions.
I will.
And then you've got time to think of it. And
Great
so
idea.
there's another value, because when you have hundreds of people, and we certainly would be very happy to have this a 4-hour webinar, but the chances are you don't have time for that. And this way, even people watching the replay then can engage with you and have their questions.
Absolutely. It's a great idea. Thank you very much.
Good. And then, so 1, if you want to get booked again, one of my longtime clients, Dan Maddox, the executive director of the American Payroll Association, what he tells speakers, it is not my job to know how I can book you again. It is your responsibility to make sure how else I can engage you. So, for example, when he first hired me, Lois, this was 1987, to speak at a luncheon in San Francisco, because in those days, you belonged to the Convention and Visitors Bureau, you got the list, you sent them a letter, they sent a card back, yes, I want a press kit, yes, I want a demo video, yes, I want a cassette tape. You know, people couldn't remember how long the process was.
Yeah.
He had never seen, this was a VHS, he had never seen a video before, watched the entire part. But that started. One of the reasons we need Lois's advice is to get attention, to have a conversation, to get the first relationship. So now, since 1996, every year, so this is my 20th consecutive year with the American Payroll Association, coaching their leaders, helping them write their speeches, delivering speaking schools for their APA speakers, delivering keynotes and breakout sessions for the entire conference. It all started with the first conversation. So, of course, if we just take a couple of minutes, so you know how to talk to Lois, and we'll get back to your questions. Paul, let's show our friends, if you want any help with taking your presentation to a whole next level, what we would invite you to do is take a free trial of FripVT, which is my interactive online training. Everything that the best I've learned in 35 plus years of speaking, put into a way that you can easily, conveniently, and quickly learn to be a great speaker in a very cost-effective way. So let's go to FripVT. All right, Paul, so there we are. So once you sign in, and you can have a free trial, let's just show them 1 minute of the of just how the format goes. If you go to the training center, let's click on, how about getting started? Welcome to Getting Started Developing Your Public Speaking Skills. Even if you are an experienced public speaker, do not skip this opening course. You will learn there is more to the creative process than you probably realize. If you're ready, click the Start Training button. Isn't this exciting?
It's great.
How often have you sat in an audience and been mesmerized by a speaker? Was it their compelling content, their personality and stage presence? Did they make a deep emotional connection that made you think, wow, the speaker is talking just to me? If we were to flip a coin, how often have you been that speaker? Okay, thank you, Paul. So that's fine. We encourage you to go to FripVT, as in virtual training, sign up for a free trial where you can see the first chapter on openings of your presentations, on stories, and on sales. So we invite you to do that. For our VT users, make sure you make it a daily or weekly habit to engage and sign into our user meetings. So certainly let's come back, Lois, and take a few more questions, knowing that everyone will have their questions answered in your blog. And we're all going to go to LinkedIn and join Book More Business.
Thank you.
And I invite everyone to go to LinkedIn, FripVT, where our conversations are about the quality of presentations, and join. So, Paul, let's see. Where do you want to pick up the questions? We'll do as many as we can in the next 5 to 10 minutes. We'll go over a little. And if you registered, you will receive the replay link so you can watch this again. Feel free to share the link with any of your friends who did not sign up.
All right, and real quick, Lois, you said the Book More Business group on LinkedIn. Could you tell us exactly how to get to it? Because someone said they were looking for it but could not find it.
Yes, you know, I think you have to put in Book More Business Experts Who Speak. Book More Business Experts Who Speak. Thank you.
And if anyone really can't find, don't worry, send Lois at Book More Business.
You know how to get a hold of me.
Believe me, good. All right, Paul, another?
All right, positioning statement. I work with organizations that want to ensure the maximum value from IT and focus it on delighting customers.
Could you repeat that again?
Certainly. I work with organizations that want to ensure the maximum value from IT and focus it on delighting customers.
I like it. I don't know that I'd change a lot of it, really. I think that you're saying exactly what you want, the concept and the outcome. I'm not going to fool with it if I don't think.
Now, could I ask a question? Because now you're the expert in this, but what I would say, if I was an expert in positioning, I would say I work with organizations who want to delight their customers through the effective IT. Oh, I'd swivel the two parts around.
Okay.
If you disagree. I mean, does it make any difference, Lois, from your point of view?
I don't think it does. I think the thing that I liked about it was that when it was laid out, he or she did the concept and the outcome bit. Now, interesting, sometimes concept can be outcome. If you look at mine, I work with speakers who want to book more business. That's a concept and an outcome, okay? So, but just say it to yourself so that it resonates and has a rhythm to it, if you will. And here's something that I suggest to people too. When you decide on a positioning statement, make sure you say it over and over and over again so it doesn't sound like it's the first time that you've said it, and leave yourself a voicemail and see how compelling you sound saying it.
Very good. Paul?
All right. In our globalized, high-tech world, I work with organizations to close the gap and connect in the final 3 feet.
I don't know what that means.
I'm thinking final 3 feet is a proprietary term. It is.
I have no idea what it means. Here's a clue. If I don't know what it means, that's a good sign that it's not a good positioning statement.
Good.
All right, let's see here. I work with companies who want to reach their customers through social media but don't know where to start, what to say, or how to post.
Bing.
Good. I think you just got a thumbs up. Good.
Bing. Got it.
All right, next one.
I work with tech companies that want more clients, bigger deals, and predictable income.
Bing. What is this? This is our, do we have some plants in here? I like it. You know, you're saying who your target market is. I work with tech, people in the tech industry. You're telling me what they want and how you fix it. I like it.
Good.
All right, and then I work with organizations who want to build and maintain positive, engaged, achievement-based cultures where their people love showing up at work.
Okay, that's too long. What I would suggest is we've got to shorten it up by just saying I work with organizations who want employees to show up every day happy, productive, and ready to go. Something like that.
All right, I work with top-tier professionals to select, retain, motivate, and lead high-performing people.
Could you say that again?
Certainly. I work with top-tier professionals to select, retain, motivate, and lead high-performing people.
Okay, take out the word motivate, and I would just say I work with leaders. Talking about leaders who want their people to. I work with leaders who want to understand how to. 1, 2, 3.
Good.
All right. I work with leaders who want to develop the best way to bring in the right customers.
Keep it. Stick.
Perfect. So that was a correction to something he said earlier. All right, positioning statement. I work with organizations that want to ensure their advocates are educated, engaged, and activated.
I would have to know more. It's confusing. They're advocates. I don't understand that.
All right. I work with leaders who want to speak with poise and power so that they will enhance their leadership presence, power to influence, and competitive edge.
I would say something like, I work with leaders who want to master power talking. And then you will define what power talking is in your subsequent words after that.
All right.
You know, it's also great if you can leave someone with something like that that might be a little bit up in the air so they can say, well, what do you mean by that? All of this is an invitation to you to tell them how much you can help them. Realize that.
Good. Well, Lois, probably at this point we need to start reviewing and leaving what your last words for our friends. Well, so if you had to sum up, it all starts with your positioning statement, which we've just proved is not necessarily quite as easy as it sounds. And practice on your friends, safe people, say it out loud, get the words, what I say, comfortable in your mouth. Practice it on safe people before you go out on the world and totally rewrite your website copy.
Well said. I would just say that your positioning statement and the conversation that comes up after the positioning statement, I think helps you to drill down and come to the core of your business. And it's a good business exercise for you.
Perfect.
And I want you to think that I'm not a speaker. I'm a purveyor of intellectual property. So how can I repurpose all of my information into different ways of putting them into the marketplace and sell them? And for some people, serve them better. Some people who will never bring you in to speak.
Yes.
Might buy your products, might buy an online course from you. So find ways to service those you seek to influence in every way you can. And I also think you have to keep at this every day. Do not let this slide. The minute you start letting your business slide, people forget your name, and the competition is too keen. Don't let that happen.
Good. So, Lois, book more business, Kramer, and will you tell our friends what Jeffrey Hazlett said when you looked at our name? Because, of course, Kramer is spelled as creamer, and Jeffrey Hazlett said, looking at that,
I put up a little blurb about what Fripp and I were doing, and Hazlett put on, Fripp and creamer. Sounds like a power drink.
So we certainly hope that you, our wonderful friends and viewers, feel that you've had an energy boost as if you just had another cup of coffee. Lois will continue answering your questions, and you could in her blog. Don't worry, we will have another conversation. You will be invited to another event where we will be discussing just LinkedIn as a subject. And remember, you cannot put your shingle up as a speaker, consultant, seminar leader unless you are a great speaker. And if you want to be a great speaker, easily, conveniently, quickly, and cost effectively, we recommend you go to FripVT, take a trial. With that, thank you, Paul, and we look forward to having you attend a future web training. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Thanks, Paul.